So the easiest languages in the world and what makes them easy. This might seem a little bit similar to the last video, and in a lot of ways it is, but this is going to differ because I'm going to try and talk more about what actually makes a language easy, because it's so subjective that you kind of need to know what makes it easy and then you use that yourself rather than be told which language is the easiest, because it's going to depend. Like, there are people that find Mandarin easier, there are people that find Arabic easier. Like, it just depends on how you're wired. So I would rather give you the tools to decide what is easier, and then you go ahead and make that decision with that knowledge. So what do the easiest languages have in common? That's, I guess, how you'd find out what is easy. And the easiest languages generally have a few things in common. They use the same alphabet as English. Just to make one thing clear from the beginning, the easiest, when I'm talking about easiest language, I mean easiest for English speakers to learn. So, obviously, someone who knows Mandarin is probably going to learn, I just take it a guess and say they're going to learn Cantonese easier than they'd learn English. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's not. But I'm just going to take a guess and assume that, whereas someone who knows English is going to have a very hard time learning either of those Chinese languages. So, from an English perspective, they generally use the same alphabet as English. It's called the Latin alphabet, or you can call it the Roman alphabet, I guess, technically. And making pronunciation, the only difference in reading it. So, use the same alphabet, it just gets pronounced a little bit differently. They have limited or similar grammar rules. Obviously, every language has a lot of grammar rules so it can function properly, so there's no such thing as not having many grammar rules, but they generally have, it's limited in its complexity, or it has similar grammar rules to English. And when I say grammar rules, I generally mean word order, so the order of words in a sentence. Like, you say, I throw the ball, you don't say the ball throws I, and it has the same meaning. That might sound silly, but there are languages that do that, and there are some languages that put the verb before, so they'd say throw I the ball, and that would mean I throw the ball, because they just put the verb first. So anything like that is going to trick you up a little bit. Generally, most European languages use the same word order. There's generally a lot of borrowed words, and this leads me to this term that's quite important. It's called lexical similarity. You don't have to remember that, but I'm just going to explain it because it's going to help you. So what lexical similarity means is how similar the languages are in the words they have. So if you had 100% lexical similarity between languages, it'd be the same language. They use all the same words. The only thing that could be potentially different is they have a different word order, so that would just be silly. And then 0% lexical similarity would mean they have no words at all in common. So even words like English and Chinese have probably a tiny amount of lexical similarity, mostly just because of, everyone can talk to each other nowadays. If we discover something new in science, it's just easier for everyone just to name it the same thing. So yeah, there's going to be, and also borrowed words, anything to do with the internet technology, there's going to be some tiny crossover, but yeah, those Asian languages and stuff are generally going to have the lowest amount of lexical similarity with English. Generally a lot of similarity and intuition in speaking it. So what that means is you can just get the grasp of it, basically, because it's not too difficult or different from English. That term lexical similarity, though, lexical comes from the word lexicology, which is just the study of words and that kind of thing. So lexical similarity, how similar are the words? That's pretty straightforward. Easy languages are the ones beginners should start with, obviously, as they provide a good entryway to language learning without putting you off. So what are the easiest languages? It is complicated. From an English-speaking perspective, generally Romance languages. So English is not a Romance language, it's a Germanic language, which is the one below. But Romance languages are generally considered to be easier because their grammar is similar. So while they're a bit different in structure, as you know if you've learned them, I can't be bothered going through and explaining all the differences. They're generally quite easy. So you've got your French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese. Romanian is a Romance language. I've just coloured it in red because it has a lot of Slavic influence, which is the area where Russia is, which can make it a little bit more difficult than the rest. The easiest of those five is probably Spanish, then Italian, Portuguese, and then French is probably the hardest, and then Romanian, obviously. And they're all descended from Vulgar Latin, which is why they're called Romance. I was going to say that's why they're called Romance languages, but that wouldn't make any sense. They are all descended from Vulgar Latin, though. And then you've got Germanic languages, which is basically your kind of like Central to Northern European languages. So you've got Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, Dutch, Afrikaans, and German. to an extent, German's red. It is a Germanic language, obviously, that's what they're named after, but it's a bit harder than the rest because of grammar rules. It's got 4 cases. It's a little bit more difficult, but these are basically the easiest languages. Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish are North Germanic languages. Dutch, Afrikaans, and German are West Germanic languages. You don't need to know that, I just thought I'd add that in. So, what's the easiest overall? It's complicated. Overall, the easiest, the reason it is because it does come back to lexical similarity, as I said before. So at a certain point, languages become so similar that they're no longer 2 separate languages. So think about this. The easiest languages are going to be the most similar, right? But the more similar they get, eventually it gets to a point where they're so similar that they're not even different languages. So you can't really say this is the easiest language now because it's just a different dialect of the same language. And that word dialect means basically... with some languages, there's different countries or whatever that speak them, but they speak them a bit differently, but not different enough that they're different languages, so a lot of the words might be pronounced different or spelled different, that kind of thing. So for an example, Arabic spoken in Egypt is different to MSA, which is Modern Standard Arabic or Fusha, so what legal documents and formal stuff is written in, and that's also different from Quranic Arabic. They're all Arabic, but the third one, is what the Quran is used to be written, and I think it's like classical Arabic. So they're all Arabic, it's the same language, but it's different dialects. So could you really say that's the easiest one to learn when it's like got the same word in it? Probably not. And furthermore, when they become even more similar, they're not even considered different dialects. Like if you look at American English, for example, versus Australian English. In Australia, where I am, colour is spelt C-O-L-O-U-R. In America, it's C-O-L-O-R. Sorry. Same with mum is spelt different, grey is spelt different. Obviously, they're not even different dialects. Like it's just a different accent and slightly different spelling, and like a little bit of different slang. Obviously, most of that on Australia's part. But yeah. So that's kind of why it gets difficult into saying what overall is the easiest language, which ironically makes it more difficult to pick what is the easiest language. But if you just want an answer, overall, Afrikaans and Norwegian are probably considered to be the easiest. Afrikaans is probably easier for someone if you already know Dutch, and Norwegian would be easier if you already know a Scandinavian language like Danish, Swedish, Icelandic, I think, but that's a bit harder to learn if you started with that, yeah. But yeah, that's basically overall what the easiest languages would be, Afrikaans and Norwegian. Dutch is probably in a close third. Swedish is not meant to be that much harder than Norwegian, and Danish is only a little bit harder on top of that. But yeah, that's basically it. Also Spanish is quite easy for a Romance language. But yeah, that's basically the easiest languages overall. It is a bit of a complicated thing, and it very much depends on just how you think and learn as an individual and what you find easier. But yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for listening, and I've mentioned it in a few videos now, but I'm working on a website currently. I'll have the link in the description. If you had any problems with learning a language before, I promise you this will fix them, because it's literally just going to be, it's going to have every resource for most languages. I say all languages, most languages. Anything you'd want to learn, basically, the most common ones. It's just going to have all of the website links you'd need, explaining every topic in the order you need to learn them. So you can literally just go onto it, learn everything in order, and you'll be fine. But yeah, that's basically everything. Thanks for listening.